We are back for another episode of Pirate Think, and if you didn't catch my last episode where I kind of just unpacked a whole bunch of stuff, the premise of it was the difference between our internal worlds and our external worlds, really, and a place of forcing us to become present. And you know, as you record and edit and put these things out there, it's amazing because you actually get an opportunity to stop and listen to what you are saying. And for me, a lot of it is just rubbish. But every now and again, there's some piratey nuggets of wisdom that just pop out that kind of make me think. And it was only 2 days ago that I sat down and birthed out of my own struggle. I spat out this podcast where I was really challenging myself to, in moments of hardship or mental fatigue or running out of capacity or however you want to label it, I got to a stage where I'm at a sound or like a firm foundation of that one of the best things you can do in those moments is not internalize anything anymore and bring it out to the external. And all that looks like in its premise, because each person is different, is about being present and bringing yourself into the present. And as I kind of listened to bits and pieces of that podcast, it kind of made me reflect back to the trajectory that I've seen humanity on since I was probably a young child. And for me, watching the last 20 years, let's say, unfold, 30 years unfold, and see the trajectory we're on and the differences in human life, one thing's becoming more and more clear, and that is in the age of AI, in the age of, almost like every aspect of our life is becoming internalized, whether it's through social media, YouTube. I mean, funny enough that I'm here doing content and reaching people, but I'm reaching people through a screen or through their internal world rather than a physical, tangible thing. But in this world of AI, in this world of like digitalization of whatever is happening, I feel the biggest threat that we have as humanity, as AI, and as this world that we know it kind of races into the next century is the loss of human connection and real connection. And I think the biggest part of all of that is that it's been a slow trajectory. Like it's just been a really gentle curve, but I feel it's going to become an exponential curve where almost the symptoms of the problem are going to be outweighed by, or the symptoms of the problem are going to be so expansive so quickly that all of a sudden we're going to be in this space that it's kind of like, okay, how did we get here? I think we're already there a little bit. How did we get here so fast? But I feel the actual detriment to humanity and to the individual person, which at the end of the day, the individual person is all that matters. You yourself in your world is all that matters. Me in my world is all that matters. And yes, we have care and love for people, but the reality at the end of the day, without me mattering, then it's kind of like, well, what's the use in this particular individual? What's the use in me? Or what's, so I need to matter. The person down the road needs to matter. The individual needs to matter. And I feel like the symptoms that will flow on from this world that we're currently living in, and even more so in this AI state, is going to be this place of lack of human connection. Pirate Think was really about wanting to integrate like-minded people and like-hearted people into a space that allowed for connection, that allowed for not just connection, but honest connection. And I think the true part of connection is that we have so many connections these days through various means, but do we actually individually have a safe space or a place that we feel we can be our honest, real, raw, rude, reckless, version of ourselves, the pirate inside ourselves that when no one else is watching, there's this internal side of us that wants to come out and be the true version of ourselves. And And really, Pirate for me was to build a community of people like that. And I remember speaking with a friend about the premise of Pirate early days and kind of going, it's this rawness and this realness of living a reckless life that's just not set to the status quo, that's actually out there sailing the seas and forging your own path in whatever you feel internally called to do. And for a starting point for most of us, I really think that starts with just finding a true, real version of ourselves. It's kind of like the trajectory of life is I've seen slowly a disconnect from the ability for humans to be able to relate and be involved with each other at their truest form. And that could be from everything. I mean, early days, it was like the awakening of the World Wide Web and the internet, and all of a sudden people were not connecting as much with their family at home or their friends in their kind of vicinity because they had this ability to like reach out and connect with people that weren't like possible to connect with. And I think that was exciting and that's great. And that was such a forward momentum step towards possibilities in this world of shared information, of shared ideas. And so, but it was kind of like, it was almost a false positive. And the false part was that the connection was real because the connection had been built on what connections of the past had been, which, if you go right back, was people living in their township who didn't have vehicles or they didn't have transportation as such. And so the average or common denominator of a person meeting or meshing with someone else was someone in your community, someone that had similar ideas to you, someone who had similar religion or similar kind of values or similar stuff. And so your fucking smirkle was small, mate. Your circle was small and it was tight and it was common. And yes, that has its own detriment to some degree, but it was probably real. Because it's like a husband or wife or a child or a close family member is those people actually get to see the real ugly, honest version of you. And it's kind of like a mother might say all the time, why does my child play up so much when she's around me, but yet the teacher tells me that she's a A-grade student, or my husband or my wife, seems so loving and fun and awesome when she's out, but when I get home, I get this aggressive, or I get this angry, or I get this sad, or I get this whatever version. And what that is it's almost a little bit like, I think the word might be habituation, where you become so used to being around and with something, or you get so used to something in your world that you slowly slip into this honest, true version of yourself. And at that particular time, if that true, honest version of yourself is hurting internally, then you portray this hurt person. And so the people that are closest to you or in your community see the real version of who you are and what you are fighting. And I'm not saying that's a good thing by any stretch, but it's a real thing. And I think as we began to progress down this world of outreach and being able to connect with wider community, the connection might have been there in a verbal or a texting or an email or something, but it was not a human-on-human connection in its rawest sense, which is if I'm walking down the street and I meet someone, it's like I see them, I see their mannerisms, their posture, I see whether they're happy or sad, I feel their energy, I get a sense of who they are, I get a sense of are they being sarcastic or funny, or you know what I mean? You get a full picture of the connection, whereas this any other connection with a human, written, verbal, watching online, you are only seeing part of the picture. And I kind of think the bad side of that enabled this space or this place in humanity where we were using our old mindsets of what connection is and what it looks like and how to read a scenario of the past into these new connections, which gave us a false narrative to now internalize and unpack what that connection might have given us. And so it's kind of like a simple one might be seeing an Instagram photo from a social media influencer that all of a sudden you start feeling bad about yourself because I don't live that life and how I can't keep my house that clean, or I don't have that thing in my world, or whatever it might be. But we start making these assumptions around community or around connection that isn't its truest form, but yet we are disorientated or disconnected from the truth or from the real version of whatever it is. And I kind of see AI being a little bit like that. Now, me personally, I'm very pro AI. I think it is an incredible thing. I think it has so much potential. I think it's going to be a game changer in health, in life, in fitness, in understanding, in scientific, medical breakthroughs. I think it's got so much great stuff going for it. But at the same time, I feel it's another step removed from this human connection that so many of us long for. And as I was kind of like pondering on this premise of like, how do I get out of and even before I started this tonight, man, for the last 4 hours, I've been in this like internal battle of like even sitting down to want to do this podcast. Like I felt overwhelmed, and I felt like angsty, and I felt like not good enough, and I felt all of these things in my world that were channeling to one thing, which was essentially me pulling the pin and going, oh, fuck it, don't worry about doing this tonight, and, whatever, just, go out and whatever I do, sit on the couch and watch YouTube probably. But almost like these continued pylons of justification internally in my world. And this is a repeated pattern for all sorts of stuff in my world, but it's internal. And I know the strategies that I myself tell myself, like, hey, bring yourself into the present, Brad. Stop doing, take a pause moment, fly a flag and say, hang on a minute, let's just chill out and let's get a bit of space and perspective and rah. But hence I'm here, which is great. Yay, Brad. Yay. But I still just am like caught on this moment that the longer I live in life, the more things seem to be dragging me away from the realities, from the present place in my life, the feel, the touch. And it's funny, 2 things shifted for me tonight. I'll see if I can think of the other one. I had 2, but one of them that stands out the strongest is I have 3 girls, 5, I believe, almost 6, pretty shit with numbers, 5, 4, and 1.5. And I was in the bedroom with my 2 older girls, and one of them was already asleep, and I was laying with the second one, and I was feeling rushed because internally in my head, again, I was feeling like I just need to get out. I need to get this podcast done. I need to get some shit off my chest, and I need to just spit this out. And so I was feeling rushed in wanting to get them down so that I could achieve. And once again, the like grit determination of want to achieve was all of these bad thoughts that had been bombarding my mind, trying to stop me from doing this. I was fighting so hard internally to keep the momentum and the positive energy up there. And for me, it was like, I just got to get out there and fucking record this thing. And that's how I'm going to beat it, by just doing it. But it made angst in my world, and I was in this internal battle. And I knew at the time I should have made myself become more present and gone, you know what, if I spend another 5, 6, 10, 15 minutes laying in the bed with my child, that could have been a really beautiful moment. And it was, but it wasn't, because I was distracted by this internal battle. And right towards the end, I'd finished tickling, I'd slept long enough. She was still kind of like tossing and turning. And I said, good night, darling. I love you. Daddy's going to go now. And she said to me, Daddy, can you just lay for 1 more minute? And I thought to myself, I have a moment here to kind of go, hey, every time I try and end this, you do this. Or I have this moment to go, all right, no, stop. This is my present call. This is my be in this present moment and just be there for it. And so I thought, no, I'm going to lay back down with her. So I said, of course, darling, I'm going to lay with you for 1 more minute. And I laid down on the pillow and I said, I'm not going to tickle though. It's time to go off to sleep. And so we just need to lie together and go to sleep. And she okayed that. And I was laying there, started just internally doing some breathing stuff and thought, let's just breathe this out. Woosah, I don't have to tickle. I'm just in this moment. And she leaned over and she put her hand around my head and she kissed me on the forehead and laid back down and said, I love you, Dad. And when I felt that physical touch, it just for a minute of a second, it brought me present. And the touch and the feel and the moment brought me into the present moment. Only for a second, but it was enough for me to reflect also in that moment how important it is for connection, how important it is for us to claw our way out of our own mind and to be present in a situation. And that can be in so many scenarios in life, whether it's sitting at your work desk, whether it's at a family dinner, whether it's connecting with friends that you haven't seen in a while, there's so many scenarios, whether it's at gymnastics or your sporting event there's so many scenarios where calling yourself out of a mindset or calling yourself out of a place to be present, and not just be present, but be present with human connection and real connection, even if that connection is you vocalizing your internal rage or it's celebrating the wildest thing. As I look at Twitch or Shorts or Discords or these school community, there's so many things out there now that are opportunities for people to reach out and say, hey, I want to be part of something. And I spent a lot of time early days in the local church. And it's funny how local church is really about community and connection. And I think that's one of its most powerful things. And there's men's groups and there's sporting activities that are all very similar in the fact that it's human connection. And so I'd put a challenge out for people today. And I would love to hear people's perspective on what's your perspective on AI? What's your perspective on being present and human connection? And what do you think has been lost? I feel this transition from internet to social media to global pandemics where we pulled people apart. This one thing keeps coming back to me, that this world that we are living in seems to be hell-bent on pulling people apart and disassociating one human with another human. And when it fails to do that, the only other thing they seem to put in front of it is conflict. And so where is your space for yourself? Where is your space of connection with another human? Where is your space of connection where you get to be the ugly, real, but happy, energetic version of yourself? But in an honest way, in a real way. Not in a fake, not in a keeping up with the Joneses, not in a, I don't want to bore this person, so I'll just pretend I'm happy, but internally I'm fighting. What is your version of connection? And it's made me challenge myself. What is my version of connection? Who is my style of connection? What do I need to connect with humanity? I think it's about recognizing now that presence is a discipline. It's something that needs to be thought about. It's something that needs to be scheduled in. Are you drinking your water? Are you doing your breathing exercises? Are you working out? Are you eating healthy? Are you bringing yourself present to focus, to feel, to be in the moment? When was the last time you laughed because you were having an amazing time? When was the last time you felt an explosion of emotion because you were fueled into this moment because you were actually lost in the moment with someone else? Whether it was dancing at a concert, whether it was meeting up with loved ones at a wedding, it's like, where is that connection for you? Good ponder. I'd love to hear anyone's take on this. I mean, I'm early days and pondering it myself, but I really think the biggest space to come in the next few years. And it's funny because we still just talk about space being money, right? Well, the new big space is drop shipping. The new big space is e-commerce. The new big space is this or it's that. But it's all about income producing. It's all about financial gain But the next big space that's going to be missed so dearly by so many humans, and I think already is connection. And once again, that's why I started on Pirate Think, because I wanted a space of connection. And although I can't connect in humanity one-on-one, I think what I can be is real. I can be raw. I can be honest. I can have a space that opens up like-minded people that are wanting to just connect and talk about the shit of this world that's happening. Yeah. These moments now, I can just get lost in my own headspace and just ponder this stuff for hours, and I kind of forget that I'm talking to a camera and I need to close and wrap up and do all that other shit but hey, this is the fucking real version of me, the real, raw, honest version of me. So welcome to Pirate Think. Don't let AI take your space.